Good morning everybody, I'm Steve and this is Green Side Up. Today I'm going to be getting on with planting some of this out in the big tunnel, replacing some stuff in there, and later on in the video I'm going to be talking about pest protection, what you can do over the winter to protect your crops, especially if you're growing indoors. Anyway, more of that later, let's get on with it. Okay, I'm getting on with planting out in that large polytunnel today, and these are mustards that are going in. And this one is Red Giant. So I'm just planting these underneath the secondary tomato plants, if you like, the ones I grew from side shoots, so that as soon as these are finished, these plants are already growing underneath. That's the idea anyway. These plants could have done with another couple of days in the modules really, but nonetheless they're going in. And I'm going to be planting a few other bits and bobs today in and around the tunnel, well, all in the tunnel. I have some more mustard behind me which I'm going to be planting there. It's a different type, that's a tender green. What you always have to remember about autumn and winter planting is pests. Because your polytunnel is so much warmer than outside, pests will make a beeline for to go in there, especially slugs. So you've got to have a strategy against slugs and other beasts and keep your eye open. I mean, earlier this year, I think it was either January or February, on my brassicas, I think they were purple sprouting broccoli, you won't believe it, but in January or February I had caterpillars. And whether they were late eggs that only hatched late on in the year, or caterpillars that have just kept on living from the previous autumn, I have no idea, but they were there. I couldn't believe it. So I had to start checking plants for caterpillars in blooming February. But the main problem I had really was with slugs. Right, this is also a mustard. This is Comatuna. It's a tender green. These are a bit more growing on than the last one was, and better nick. So we'll get these planted out, and then there's still a few more things to plant out. So sort of gardening in the winter is all about watching out for pests and keeping on top of watering. I must admit, I do like to be able to harvest these regularly if I can. Keeps the plant moving. And at the same time, I mean, they do say that there's no better fertiliser than the farmer's footstep, and I think that's very true. And that means that, you know, if you're looking after your crops, there's less chance of it being damaged. So there we go, we'll just finish this bed off and then we'll move on to something else. slugs are probably the worst pest you'll come across over winter. You will suffer from voles and mice, but slugs are probably the worst. Now there are many ways to protect against them. There's copper tape, crushed eggshells, beer traps and slug pellets, and all work to a certain degree, but none of them actually stop it. Now if you had a pot with copper tape around the top, it stops the slugs climbing up the outside and over, but it doesn't stop them coming from the inside through the soil. So that's just an example of how you can use a method, but it's not 100% foolproof. Now I've come across a method, a lady a good number of years ago showed me on a gardening forum. She had a greenhouse full of plants and she put one slug pellet on either end of her bench in her greenhouse, 8-foot bench. If the pellet disappeared, she replaced it because it had killed the slug, and that was how she operated, and she kept her greenhouse slug free all the way through spring. So I now use that same method. I only use them undercover in the two polytunnels and in my greenhouse at home. So around this bed here, this is about I don't know, 9-10 foot long by about 4.5 foot. I'll probably put 10 slug pellets around that, one at each corner, a couple down each side and a couple down the middle, because I don't want to attract a lot of slugs. Slug pellets are designed to attract a slug to it so that it will eat it and die. Now, thing with slug pellets, how many people have you seen doing this all over the place? And it's like a blue rain of pellets going down, and then a couple of weeks later the crops have been devastated by slug because they've told every slug in the area that there's food there, because they're all attracted to the slug pellets. But they get there, some will eat a pellet straight away and some will start eating a cabbage or a lettuce, and before you know where you are, you've got an infestation, and you put more slug pellets down to try and counteract this, and more slugs come. You're just compounding the problem. So I'll go back, I use about 10 on that bed there. If one is eaten, then I'll replace it. If they disintegrate from me water in the bed, I'll replace them, but that's all I use. I don't use them outside. I did some research earlier in the year, and I was looking for information about slug pellets actually killing mammals, because there is two camps about the use of slug pellets. There are those like myself who will use them under controlled circumstances, and those who are wholly against them. They're like the Black Death. I couldn't find any research or official papers on there that actually stated that slug pellets kill mammals. I did, however, find one vet's information who said that his opinion was that with the levels of poison that were in a slug pellet, that a hedgehog would need to eat 2,000 slug pellets in a single sitting to become mildly unwell. That's not killing it. I also found autopsy information from vets who are autopsying animals, small mammals like like a hedgehog for instance, and slug pellet poison was found within the body. But as that vet then said, he said it wasn't the cause of the death, it was the fact that he'd eaten probably a slug that had eaten and died of slug pellet poisoning. He says that poison that was in it was not enough to kill it, and that was just supplemental, and it was in the autopsy results. And I think this is what people grasp onto. They see these results and they think, oh god, no, I can't use that, it's going to poison it. So I use twixt and between. I don't use them outside where the mammals can get hold of them. I'll let nature take care of that outside. I'll let the frogs, toads and beetles kill the slugs out there, and if they don't, they don't. But in here, especially in winter and in spring, I will use pellets, but it's in a controlled environment. They can't get at them, and I'll use only tiny amounts. That even a whole season's pellets that I'll put down would not make a hedgehog mildly unwell. So that's my take on slug pellets. Now these are a Chinese cabbage, and the variety is Wong Bok. Now I have immense troubles with these things. I think every beastie in Christendom wants to eat them, and if they don't get eaten, they die with mildew or some sort of rot, and the plants generally just, as I said a couple of weeks ago, the plants generally just collapse for no apparent reason. But you know, I always get 1 or 2 out, which is good, and I keep trying. Now, I'm trying them, and this is probably going to be the death knell to them. I'm trying them in a very wet area of the polytunnel here. See if that makes any difference. You know, the condensation drips down the plastic down here and pools under here. It's very wet, this part. This part, in comparison, the front is a lot drier. So we'll see if that makes any difference. But even if they are being eaten, my thought on that is, if they're eating these, they're not eating something else. So I'm quite happy with that. You've got to, if you're growing over the autumn and winter, you've got to sacrificial grow, you know. You will lose a lot of plants. You know, some gardeners are very lucky. It might just be my situation here, but I tend to lose a lot of plants over the winter. But there we go, cabbage wong bok. There's another one planted. Grow well, my beauties. Right, so that's it for today. Thanks for coming in and having a look, and thanks to all the new subscribers. Please take care, everyone. Stay safe, and I'll see you in a day or so. Ta-ra now.